Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something I know a lot of you are curious about.
Yeah.
Social media and body image.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hot topic, right? We've got a ton of opinions floating around out there,
Sure.
but we're going to cut through the noise and bring you some solid research.
Absolutely.
So we've got two main sources we'll be looking at.
Okay.
First up, we've got a really comprehensive overview of research by Farduli and Vartanian.
Sounds thorough.
It is. And then to break things down even further, we've got this great blog post from Hendricks Health that summarizes some of the key findings.
Cool.
And I think you'll find this really interesting. We're going to be looking at how this affects both men and women,
Right.
which isn't always the focus of these conversations, you know?
Yeah, that's a really important area to explore because it touches on so much more than just appearance.
Right.
We're talking about self-esteem, mental health, and even how we view ourselves in relation to other people.
Absolutely. And both of these sources highlight a really strong connection between social media use,
Yeah.
especially Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and body image concerns.
Right.
And this is in young people, both men and women. And in fact, one study even suggested that this link could actually become even stronger over time.
Oh, wow.
So Farduli and Vartanian, they specifically looked at studies involving young adults.
Okay.
You know, that age when we're already trying to figure out who we are,
Yeah.
how we fit in.
Right. When you layer on that constant stream of idealized images that social media presents, it can really have a big impact on self-perception during those crucial developmental years.
Yeah.
And as that study suggested, those long-term implications for self-esteem and mental health could be, pretty significant.
It makes you wonder how much social media shapes those years, right?
Totally.
Like those crucial years of development.
Yeah.
And it's not just being on social media.
Right.
It's the comparison game
Uh-huh.
that really seems to be the problem.
I see.
Farduli and Vartanian even cite a study that specifically linked comparing yourself to your peers on Facebook with having negative body image. So what's going on there psychologically? What makes us so prone to compare ourselves to others?
Well, it's actually a natural human tendency. It's called upward social comparison.
Okay.
And we're kind of wired to size ourselves up against other people. And, historically, that actually had survival benefits.
Interesting.
But in the age of social media, where we're constantly bombarded with all these curated and often unrealistic portrayals of other people's lives, this natural tendency can just get amplified.
Right.
And that's where the problems start to arise.
I see.
And the Hendricks Health blog, they actually call this the culture of comparison. And social media really throws fuel on that fire.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And Farduli and Vartanian, they also point out how social media really encourages us to present the best, most polished version of ourselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's all about,
The perfect angles,
perfect angles.
the filters, only sharing the highlights.
The highlight reel?
Yeah.
So we're comparing ourselves to this curated reality
Uh-huh.
that isn't even real.
That's so true.
Right.
And yet, even when we logically know that it's not real, it's hard not to internalize those images and start measuring ourselves against them.
Yeah.
It's like our emotional brains haven't quite caught up with the digital age,
That's a good point.
That's why media literacy is so important.
Yes.
We need to develop the skills to critically evaluate the messages that we're seeing online.
Right.
And to remember that social media is often a highlight reel,
Yeah.
not a documentary.
Not the full picture.
Yeah.
And speaking of media literacy, I found it really interesting that the Hendricks Health blog specifically addresses men's experiences,
Oh, yeah.
which is something we don't always hear enough about in these discussions.
For sure.
They emphasize that social media is pushing unattainable body images for men too,
Right.
often centered around muscularity and fitness.
Yeah.
And they even talk about how traditional stereotypes of masculinity
Yeah.
can add another layer of pressure.
It's crucial to acknowledge that men often face these unique challenges when it comes to body image and seeking help,
Right.
because society often encourages men to be stoic and strong,
Yeah.
which can make it harder for them to open up about feeling insecure
Uh-huh.
or dissatisfied with their bodies.
It's like they're caught in a double bind, right?
Exactly.
They're bombarded with these idealized images of what it means to be a man,
Yeah.
but they're also discouraged from expressing any vulnerability or seeking help if those images are causing them distress.
Absolutely. And that's where those media literacy skills that we were talking about, they become so important.
Right.
It's about recognizing that what we're seeing on social media is often a carefully constructed presentation,
Yeah.
not a reflection of reality.
Right. And the Hendricks Health blog actually offers some really practical tips
Sure.
for navigating this tricky terrain and
Yeah.
protecting our mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they suggest setting limits on social media use.
Oh, that's so easy to get caught up in that endless scroll.
Isn't it?
But being mindful of how much time we're spending online and consciously choosing to step away can make a big difference.
It resonates with me.
Yeah.
It's like anything else.
Right.
Moderation is key.
Yeah.
We wouldn't expect to feel good if we binged on junk food all day.
Right.
So maybe we need to start thinking about social media consumption the same way.
I like that.
They also talk about being intentional about who we follow
Yeah.
and curating our feeds.
Yes.
So what exactly do they mean by that?
So it's about taking control of what we're exposing ourselves to online.
Mm-hmm.
If certain accounts consistently trigger negative feelings or promote unrealistic standards, we have the power to unfollow them or mute them.
Right.
It's about choosing to surround ourselves with content that uplifts and inspires us,
I see.
rather than content that makes us feel inadequate or envious.
It's like giving our social media feeds a detox.
I like that analogy.
Out with the negativity, in with the good vibes.
Yeah, it's about being proactive and choosing to create a more positive online experience for ourselves.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Hendricks Health also highlights the importance of having open and honest conversations about mental health,
Yes.
especially with friends and family.
Absolutely.
I think this is so crucial because it helps break down the stigma
For sure.
and encourages people to reach out for support when they need it.
It's about creating spaces where we feel comfortable sharing our struggles
Right.
without shame or judgment.
Yeah.
And these conversations can be so powerful in normalizing these experiences and reminding us that we're not alone.
Yeah, instead of passively scrolling and comparing, maybe we need to be more actively engaging with each other.
Right.
Having real conversations
Yeah.
and building those genuine connections.
Exactly. And sometimes those conversations might lead to seeking professional help,
Yeah.
which is another thing Hendricks Health emphasizes.
Okay.
There's absolutely no shame in reaching out to a therapist or counselor. In fact, it's a sign of strength and self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Right.
We wouldn't hesitate to see a doctor if we had a broken leg.
Right.
Mental health is just as important as physical health.
Absolutely.
And there are professionals who can help us heal and build resilience.
Yes, and both sources also point out that social media's impact goes beyond just body image.
Right.
Hendricks Health mentions things like cyberbullying and online harassment,
Oh, yeah.
which can be incredibly damaging, especially for young people who are still figuring out who they are.
Absolutely.
And then there's the fear of missing out,
Uh,
that constant pressure to be on and experiencing exciting things,
mm.
which can lead to a lot of anxiety and a sense of inadequacy.
It's like social media often presents this highlight reel of everyone else's lives,
Right.
making our own feel dull and boring in comparison.
And it's important to remember that what we see on social media is often a distorted view of reality.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing carefully curated snippets, not the full picture.
Right. So along with setting boundaries and having those honest conversations,
Yeah.
it sounds like we need to be really critical of the content we consume online.
Absolutely.
And remember that it's not always a true reflection of reality.
And that's where media literacy comes in again.
Yeah.
It's about developing the skills to analyze the messages we're receiving,
Okay.
question the motives behind them,
Yeah.
and make informed choices about what we allow to influence our thoughts and feelings.
You know, it's empowering to know
Yeah.
that we actually have more control
Right.
over our social media experience than we might realize.
For sure.
We can choose what we consume,
Mm-hmm.
who we follow,
Absolutely.
how much time we spend on these platforms.
That's such a crucial point. We're not powerless.
Right.
In the face of social media, we have agency
Yeah.
to shape our online environment
Mm-hmm.
and protect our mental well-being.
So what happens when we start applying this critical lens to our own social media habits? I'm curious, do you ever find yourself falling into those comparison traps?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's something we all struggle with from time to time. The
Yeah.
key is to develop that self-awareness,
Yeah.
to notice when those comparisons are starting to creep in
Uh-huh.
and to gently redirect our attention.
It's like catching ourselves in the act
Exactly.
and then choosing to focus on something more positive or uplifting.
Right. And remembering that social media is just one small slice of our lives.
Mm.
It doesn't define us, and it certainly doesn't represent the full picture of who we are or what our lives are like.
That's so true. So where do we go from here? We've talked about the negative impacts,
Yeah.
but we've also touched on, the potential for social media to be a force for good.
Right.
So what would it look like to use these platforms to promote body positivity and mental well-being?
That's a great question, and I think there's a lot of exciting work happening in that space already.
Okay.
We're seeing more and more accounts that are challenging those unrealistic beauty standards,
Yeah,
celebrating diversity, promoting a positive self-image.
I've definitely noticed that shift,
Yeah.
and it's so encouraging.
It feels like the conversation is starting to change.
Yeah,
We can all be a part of that change.
right.
We can choose to follow accounts that align with our values, share content that promotes body positivity,
Yeah.
engage in conversations that challenge those harmful stereotypes.
And it's like we have this opportunity to create a more supportive and inclusive online environment.
Exactly, and that can have a ripple effect in the real world, too.
Oh,
The more we normalize these conversations and challenge those unrealistic standards, the more we create space for people to feel comfortable in their own skin.
that's a really powerful message.
Yeah.
It feels hopeful knowing that we can use these tools to connect and support and inspire each other.
Absolutely. It's not about erasing the negatives entirely,
Right.
but it's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
that mindful approach to social media that allows us to engage in a way that feels good and supports our well-being.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful, and I'm walking away with a renewed sense of awareness and
Good.
a whole toolbox of strategies.
Love it.
It's been great having you guide us through this complex topic.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Yes.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep using your voice to create positive change online and offline.
That's a great reminder. Until next time, everyone keep diving deep and stay curious.